Hi, welcome to Conscious Corner with yours truly, Brother Ralph. And this segment of our show, we have with us political seminar expert Legacy Bradshaw, who will be speaking to us about social movements, their inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Legacy, welcome to the show.
Hey Ralph, always a pleasure.
All right, so this show is one that we put together for students of the Florida A&M University and other HBCU students, where we will be discussing political issues in regards to us as Black people, of course, but also the wider American society. Now, one of the things that was pivotal in the process of of developing and ensuring a better democracy was the civil rights movement. And of course, there's no voting rights, even women's rights and so forth, post-slavery, that could have been realized in our society today had it not been for the legacy and the struggles of the civil rights movement. All right, so given that you're an expert in this matter, we would like to talk to you about some of these issues. And our first question for you today is, what is the most important thing or events that people should know but don't know in regards to civil rights?
Good question, Ralph. So we're all so used to this ideal, this misconception that the civil rights movement was just birthed out of Miss Rosa Parks sitting down on the bus, this tired seamstress not wanting to move, and then this bus driver just forcing her to move, stuff like that. And then we see Martin Luther King come in, and we see the civil rights movement, the bus boycott really birthed, right? But what we fail to realize is that there's so many instances that happened prior to the civil rights movement, prior to December 5th, that really onset the civil rights movement. So we have Miss Recy Taylor, which was so pivotal in her time, which was around 1930s, because she was the first Black woman to actually stand out and go to trial against her white assailant. She was raped by 6 men. Until this day, she never received a fair trial for that, but received an apology from Alabama once she passed. So that was definitely pivotal. And then we see with Mamie Till and the Emmett Till's his death, this little boy being just subjected to subhuman standards, and we see her strength when she shows how she's willing to just show America what hate really does.
Face of the racism, basically.
Exactly. Face of racism. The way you said it is perfect. You see how this curse, this cancer, can really invade and take a life. Along with the Brown versus Board, we don't really see everything that happened with that. There's so much work that's done to that. We have people like Claudette Clubman, who was actually the first person to sit on the bus boycott and actually took stance, but being that she was pregnant, she was later denied the right by E.D. Nixon to actually serve as the spearhead of the bus boycott.
Well, I would like to interject briefly and mention something about that, because while you have a wider input, there's also an input within that process.
Exactly.
Through her. So what and outcome being what we see today, but what is the macro outcome of her willingness to still fight and stand out at that time, and the similarities today where women are still subjected to that, well, you're not the right fit type of narrative. What are your views on that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel that the one thing about Black women, resilience is within us, right? So we're used to being told no, we're used to being told this isn't for you, but we have to understand that there's always a way for us to maneuver our way around to be the best that we can be. In order to be on the top, there's so many women who have served as the backbones of so many organizations, so many movements, who are discredited simply because they're a woman. So I just feel like Black women, we don't look for the acknowledgement, but just know that we're the ones doing the work. So we're okay with that.
I love that. And today, as we're here recording for this show, today is the anniversary, of the late Shirley Chisholm, who was the first African American and woman to have the gall to say, I can be president too.
Right.
In the 1970s. And one thing that was quite interesting, again, as we're speaking about civil rights, was the fact that, in a nation which preaches democracy, she was barred entry, in being able to really get the screenplay and influence needed, to make a truly impactful run.
Right.
But, she fought against that. And we see where, for example, she won 10% of the overall vote nationwide. 10% is not 100, but it's still,
it's something.
It's far more than 1%.
It's groundbreaking, yes.
Exactly. So, what are your views and seeing something like that on the outcomes of input that was made way back when today? Especially given the midterm elections that
exactly,
we see.
that's what I was just going to bring up. We are in 2018. This is definitely, I would say, the year of the woman. We have Stacey Adams running for governor in Georgia, and this is just so pivotal. And to see so many outcomes of women working so
hard, right?
so hard
Yeah.
is it's inspirational. And we have women, such a strong legacy of Black women and working through tough challenges, dealing with sexism, classism, racism. At the highest form, it's just inspirational to see so many women actually break through
Yeah.
and build upon.
I got you. And one thing I found
legacy.
interesting is, going back to the past, is the reason why we see, although there's still a lot of negatives, we still see some positives of the effort of what was put in back in during the civil rights movement. Because even today, where we have the youngest congresswoman in history,
Right.
28 years old, or female at that, a minority woman, that we can equate to the work that was put in by, like, again, Shirley Chisholm and other women back during the civil rights movement. But before our taping, you spoke of another outcome that actually was that came out of the process of the civil rights movement. So can you tell us about that?
Definitely. When we think about the civil rights movement, it's really hard not to mention the Black Panthers movement, because what we really have to understand for the civil rights movement is that it birthed a sense of somebodyness for Black people, for Black culture. Before, we were so used to just living in the subhuman field, being second to everything. But when we actually had a chance to boycott together, unite together, this birthed into the Black Panthers movement. This birthed into Black pride, Black culture, defending of Black womanhood, Black families, and everything that was Black. So the Black Panther movement definitely served as a pivotal stage in ensuring the legacies of the civil rights movement and ensuring the progress and prosperity of the Black culture.
I love that. But it's unfortunate, though, however, how things took a negative downturn after the Black Panthers in the 70s, because I guess the outcome of all those decades of just trying to shake the status quo and also declare that like the famous poem, I too am a man. The fact that our power was still like the goalpost it shifted
Right.
away, because, for example, in the Constitution, the most powerful document in the land, it says that us as citizens have the right to bear arms, etc. But even today, again, in comparison to the output of that time, where the FBI considered a group of Black men and women who simply wanted to challenge the status quo terrorists, today, where we see in the deaths of innocent Black men who, because they bear an arm, they are still murdered and brutalized for that right that you have groups like the NRA and
Right.
other, even the Governor Kemp, in his campaign ad, he boldly carried a gun, mentioning, I'm here to protect your gun rights. So my question to you as we close, given that we have a few minutes left, is where do we stand today, and how do we turn the outcomes of yesterday?
That's a really good question, Ralph. So I feel like one of the things that we have to remember as being Black in America is there's always a play on words. You understand me? We've seen that with the 13th Amendment, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when we say you have the right to bear arms, we're talking to our white counterparts. You have the right to bear arms, but we have the right to suffer the consequences from it, right?
Wow.
Or we have the right to deal with whatever you shoot towards us. So I would definitely say that we just have, as a Black people as a whole, we have to understand our role in society and understand how important it is for us to unite and understand what we all believe together. Well, accountability is a really big thing too. Being able to hold your brother accountable for
actions that
for their actions, for their wrongdoings, but also being able to show your brother the right way. We have this crab in the bucket mentality a lot, and one thing about our counterparts, our white counterparts, I must say, like, you never really see them trying to compete with each other at a business level or something like that. It's like, why can't we both just eat at the table together? You get me?
When you say that mentality is an outcome of like slavery?
Oh, definitely slavery. We see that with the Willie Lynch letter, how he says that this will plague them for years to come, right? We have dark skin versus light skin, house nigger versus fulfilled nigga. We have just all of these different curses that we've never fully healed from. So this sees us our progression. This sees us how we see each other wholly. So yeah.
And again, I thank you for that, by the way. But as we close, again, in terms of shifting the outcomes of the past, what are some challenges that we face, and how can we overcome that?
Well, right now we're really dealing a lot with the voter suppression. We see in this Shelby versus Holder case how we're giving states the right to basically
regulate voting process.
Regulate voting, exactly. So I know, like, back in Georgia, how there's like millions of people who are just purged off of the voting list, and this is it's mind-blowing to me because our ancestors worked so hard with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 just to be able to vote. So when we see these names just being purged off of these lists, and it contributes to other things because every 10 years we have to go through the census, right? So if we can't vote, we're left out of the census. And that's less funding for our schools, less funding for our community, and it's like we're being left out yet again. Wow.
Well, Dr. Bradshaw, we thank you for coming here on the show. It's always great to have an expert here in the Conscious Corner. Now, to our listeners and audience and guests, we thank you for tuning in, and always remember to stay woke and vote. Thank you.
Yeah, blessings. Yeah, man, Black people, African people are just one love and one joy, Blessings. Yeah, man, it's the black man and the black woman kingdom, Righteousness. Check it. Hey, so we go. A lot of people don't got no